Welcome to What's Left, a weekly political discussion challenge in the mainstream left. I'm Eduardo with co-host, teacher and socialist Andy Lipson, and community advocate Gema Sotomayor. We're online at what'sleftpodcast.com. You can find that link to our site in the episode notes. You can also find our personal social media handles, well, mine as at Don Eduardo Barca on Instagram. And please subscribe, rate, review, turn on your notifications, and share your favorite episode wherever you found this episode. Thank you. All right, it's been a while as I'm trying to record. I promise I'll have a laptop by next week. So I'm using what I can right now. And I'm here in Bogota, the capital of Colombia. And it's going to be December soon. So I'm very excited to see you both right now on What's Left.
Yeah, it's definitely good to have you back. Although I will say that last episode that Gema and I recorded made a big impact on a lot of the people who I know in my life who pay attention to the show, including my colleague that I work with at work who listens to the show pretty religiously. He thought it was great. And in fact, he himself, as a teacher, has formed a similar relationship, not exactly with a student, but with a younger person out of has a very similar kind of thing that he went through, that you and I went through, Gema. I'm just really glad. I kind of wanted to have this sort of episode again with Gema before we released Gema and Andy, but I'm glad it's out there. I just think that episode is awesome, and it's got over 100 views, which I'm really glad about. On YouTube, it's got more than others, it was great. So, but I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was very intimate last week's episode, and I also look forward to hearing and listening and watching the entire thing. I went part way, but I also think it was important to have just the two of you for one episode on What's Left.
And you know our story too. I mean, it kind of evolved with you in there, right? So in the abuse this man puts me through.
A very intimate family here on What's Left.
Yeah. I do. I am more thinking of it as a family show, and almost as much as as a political show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's get started. So today's topic, we had discussed discussing spirituality. It was one of those topics that we had on our list of possible topics for What's Left, and I know when I brought it up with you, you were wondering what could we talk about regarding it, and I said there's lots to discuss, since you having been a staunch atheist back from when we started to 2023, and I actually have questions for Gema regarding her spirituality, and just in general the discussion on spirituality. What do we make of it? And we've had Alison on before, and she's discussed about indigenous spirituality or their connection to the natural world. And we've had different people on the show regard scientists, and we've discussed matters of science. And Andy, you are a doctorate, PhD, and you come from a different background. And I know Gema and I grew up in Latin America with those very strong Christian Judeo values. But I guess, what do we make of it in general, and also to a greater extent, what do we think of it in regards to what we think of it politically, right? So that's today's topic. Did you want to add anything to it, Gema or Andy?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this actually came as a result of an article. Well, I was already thinking about my own changes around religion and the way I think about it. I would agree with you. I would have described myself as a staunch atheist before, and even like an atheist missionary, and even before that, person who was trying to convert people to atheism, if you will. And now I would describe myself as an atheist by default. Not staunch, but I've never known anything else, and that's what I am today. But I'm just sort of here because this is the land I've been living on, and I don't have any other spiritual land that I've ever been on. But two things I think really have caused me to want to have this discussion. One was a article by Naomi Wolf. Naomi Wolf has took a very strong position against the COVID lockdown measures and around the censorship, and talking about this new fascism rising. And I agree with her on all those concerns. And one of the things that she wrote in an article maybe about 3 or 4 months ago was that she's Jewish, I believe, and she's found recently that her religion and her belief in God has been much more animated, been much more like from the background to the foreground, and largely on the basis of feeling like she now just sees evil in the world. She didn't see that before, and that was interesting. I have some thoughts about that, but I think that's going on, and I think it is going on because on the brother side of my family, my brother, just like me, has been a staunch atheist, and even an atheist missionary trying to convert people away from atheism earlier. So he and I have been really aligned along that religious route of, we weren't raised with religion, and we're just like, no, I don't believe in a God, and I don't really see it. And questioning things. Both of us have had a background in science, and questioning from that lens. And now he and his family have definitely taken a dive into Christianity, and like he's leading Bible study groups, and just talks about Jesus and God in his life. And it's been a fairly abrupt, very quick entry of this, and I thought it would be more jarring for me, but it wasn't. And in fact, I have to say, the results of it are he seems more open to conversations about revolution, more open to conversations about changing the world. I'm not going to say it's just as a result that was happening because of what the COVID, the lockdowns and shit like that. But I actually think it has moved him more along the road of not accepting the way that the world that men have set up, and I'm saying humans, I should say. And I'm not speaking like, oh, that's the road I see myself going down, but it's caused me to change, particularly as a Marxist, who we often say opiate of the masses, and see religion as many. And there's something more to say about that, even that quote from Marx. But we certainly would say God is a creation of man, and is used to help men understand the world. It doesn't exist actually, and actually even say that by and large, a future revolutionary world is going to be one where that kind of spirituality, it's not made illegal. That's bullshit, but it's going to wither away. Like, it won't be necessary. It's not going to flourish under a truly free human society. And I have questions about that now. And so I believed that before. Now I'm not. I don't know if I believe that anymore. So that just led me to wanting to talk with you, Eduardo, and then Gema. This was something that came up even before you joined us, but I just thought it would be a good chance to. I think this would be a good time to just talk about this. Not about Israel, and it's not Israel, Hamas, or whatever, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. That's not really what I'm thinking. It's really just this shit is entering my life more. But this stuff is entering my life more, and I want to think about why is that happening. What are my thoughts about it? So it's a little long-winded, but that this is an important discussion for me.
I have a couple things to say about that because my mom went through something very similar, and I think that just also comes with the different stages in life. As you start to approach what we think is death, you start to think, well, what comes after that? Is there more? And religion oftentimes offers an alternative, offers an answer to that, right? I I see spirituality and religion as two completely separate things. So for me, spirituality is my understanding of self and the role of myself in the universe around me, how I adapt to it, how I connect to it, how I respond to it, and how I control it. To me, that's spirituality. Religion is my belief system. So that's what I believe. Now, a lot of people will argue that if you're a spiritual person, you tend to not be religious. because you don't necessarily believe in the dogma or in the religion as an institution. You see nature a little bit more fluid. You see a deeper connection, which is what I think Allison was referring to as far as the natives, indigenous, their religion, their spirituality connection to the world, right? I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic. When people ask me, I say that I'm Catholic. I do not practice Catholicism. I don't believe in the institution that is the church. I believe that man has manipulated, as they manipulate, in man I mean human beings, but mostly men in this case, have manipulated the religion and used it as a weapon against ourselves, against its own sheep per se. So I don't, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe in God, that I don't believe in in the Mary and the saints and in the angels. I do, but I do make a distinct, I do make like a separation between the institution that is religion, my spiritual self, my sense of self and identity, and my belief system in Catholicism. But I'm actually more interested in going back and forth with Eduardo, because Eduardo, you had something similar to me and you just completely walked away from it. And I tend to think that you're more now, my sense of you is that you are more now what I would say spiritual, which is you have a connection, you meditate, you do some inner search, but I don't believe that you're actually still tied to your religion.
Well, let's see what we could. Well, yeah, I mean, growing up Latino, and you have the Christian Judeo sort of belief that you are raised with. So my father's side, most of my family is all Catholic, and just a very small side of my family is Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was raised with a Catholic father, but not really a religious go to church kind of person, and with a very religious Jehovah's Witness mother. So I know both sides, but as I have shared in another episode, I'm not going to go into depth now, but people can look at the Jehovah's Witness episode that I did on my own. And I was raised 18 years as a Jehovah's Witness by my mother, and I still went and visited my other side of my family, so I know a lot of the practices, Catholic practices. But those things have not that religious belief, the way that I was raised, caused a lot of grief and a lot of suspicion over what I was taught, and so I don't think I'll ever go back to any religious institution. But thank you, Gema, for saying what you said around spirituality and religion, with being like two separate things. That's what I also have adopted. And you seem to shake your head as well, nodding your head. I'm sorry, nodding your head, Andy, as well. So I think that we're all kind of in that same boat where we think that religion, spirituality, or how let you say it, Andy, or you'll say it after. Well, I believe the way that Gema just laid it out, but I don't believe in. When I say I don't believe, it's I don't know if God exists or does not exist. I don't know if that we had multiple lives. I don't know if there's I don't actually believe that there is a infierno,
A
hell. Yeah, thank you. And I was just discussing this topic with someone here. I don't think that God is that cruel to create such a place for us to go to if we behave awfully. I just think we die. I don't know. I don't know if there are ghosts, if there are spirits, if there are other souls. I'm not sure. I don't know. And the thing is about me, I don't entertain it because I think a lot of questions exist, but they don't actually always make sense. So, for example, what color is the air? Well, it's a question in English or a question in Spanish. You can form the question, but it doesn't actually always merit an answer because the question is just formulated, but it doesn't mean anything. If so, that's what I always think about these things. So when people say, "Or what was before human Earth, before the Earth and humans and before our existence? What was it? I mean, the question can be formulated. I don't think it merits an answer. So there's a lot of questions that we pose, philosophical, spiritual, but I don't always entertain all of them because I don't think it matters. What matters is what we are doing to one another. That's what matters to me. So on this planet right here on Earth, a lot of people focus on the philosophical questions, but to me, what matters is what we're doing to one another and how we are treating one another. And that, to me, I think are the questions that we should be entertaining. What am I doing to better this world? Or what am I doing to help someone else? Or what am I doing to help my family? Or how can I become better? Or how do I self-develop to become the most helpful or conscientious human possible? But I don't think that humans entertain those questions enough. And I think we entertain the questions on morality and what is right and wrong and not what we should be doing. So I was having a discussion today or 2 days ago, I forget when, but with someone a taxi driver, she here in Colombia, and I was talking to my friend about we were discussing abortion, and then the taxi driver decided to chime in, and she said it's morally wrong to abort. It's just morally wrong to abort. And I hear that a lot from religious people, but I don't hear enough. Then what are they doing to contribute so that they can help other children or adopt children? Or like for me, I don't plan to have children. I've already fostered former students of mine, and I plan to be that uncle to everyone else's children, because I think I'd rather make a difference there in my friend's children's life or my nephew's life, for example, than have children of my own. And that's a separate discussion about children and overpopulation, and we'll have that discussion when it comes. But regarding what are we doing to better this world is the question I wish to entertain, and that which is the question I think that matters for most, which I think matters for religious people, because I see a lot of religious people who are very spiritual and latigándose. How do you say this? Latigándose, like I see here in Colombia, where
floggle? Is that the word?
Oh yes, you're muted, Andy.
Self-flagellation.
Yeah. So I see lots of people in Latin America, having lived in Latin America, and right now I'm in Colombia, I've been in Mexico, in my own country, seeing this practice where people go and walk on their knees during certain holiday traditions, or they go out and they fluggle, or however the word is. But I don't know how much are they conscientiously contributing to better this world that we live in. It's more of everything's in the future. I want to do well so that I can go to heaven, or at least or to redeem some past, which I understand people want to redeem the past or something, to find redemption. But the redemption happens here in the present. And so I have gone through a long journey myself, and I discovered meditation, vipassana meditation. So I meditate. And one thing that I love about meditation and my practice, which is a Buddhist tradition, is about focusing more on the now than on the past and the future. So that's what I think. I don't want to go into too much right now unless anyone else has questions about it. But that's how I see this play out. And of course, I feel philosophically inclined to think about the wonders of the world, or to think about how did we come about, or there are things that feel suddenly this thing. I was in Cartagena, in the very coast of Colombia, and I went to a lagoon, and there was all this plankton, and we were in this boat that I had gone in, and it was very dark, and there's this plankton at night that when you touch it, all the shines blue, and I jumped into the water with my friend, and everything is just like Avatar looking, like it's so magical. And you think sometimes, how do these things like you feel so connected to the world and to the stars, and everything is so beautiful, and of course something sparked inside me to feel connected to this planet and to feel connected to the humans that I was with, my friends, and to feel just awed by the beauty and the magnificence of how our planet is, and I was bathed in plankton. I was blue, and it just, to me, it brings out that part of like how we're so much more than just our lives trying to make money and live and everything, but so I'm not trying to dismiss that there is this other side that I know exists for us. Yeah.
So I have a couple things, but I actually want to get back to Lipson because Lipson, you seem to be a little bit, I don't know if you're coming to terms or trying to identify, or where do you feel,
Yeah.
where do you fall on that, right? Because you're clearly an atheist when it comes to religion, but how would you define your self spirituality after kind of hearing Eduardo
Yeah.
and I?
Well, first off, I you said a very provocative thing when you said you see religion separate from spirituality, and Eduardo agreed with you. And when I was nodding my head, I was nodding my head because I understood what you were saying, Eduardo. I don't think it was necessarily agreement.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So I was like, wait, no. And I want to be clear.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. But I want to be clear. When I say I don't agree, what I'm going to say is this: is I don't experience it that way. So it's like, how does an atheist weigh in on such a thing as religion and spirituality? And then I'm kind of thinking along two lines. First off, and I'm hoping my brother ends up listening. I'm probably going to ask him to listen to the episode. So I'm going to say some things that I'm going to speak for my brother, if you will, based on what I'm here. I would suspect, just like myself, that my brother, who is a Christian, would not think that religion and spirituality are separate. That actually he'd say, no, you integrate those sorts of things. That's my sense, because, and I can't really use Christianity, but I think I can use Marxism. And then they're going to be Marxists when they say that. Wait, Marxism isn't a religion. Marxism isn't a religion. I agree with you. It's not a religion, but it's an ideology that frames the way I look at the world. And actually, it has worked for me because it has become integrated with myself and the way I experience me. Like, I actually think my counseling was so successful in large part, well, in a piece, because I was serious about approaching my Marxism and approaching how the world is constructed and trying to be honest about it. And that required a level of honesty in dealing with myself. So for me, I don't experience, I would tend to think that religion and spirituality would want they'd want to come to the same base place, like they would integrate with each other, not to see them as separate. And I'm not telling you, Gemma, that you're wrong, or Eduardo, you're wrong. I'm just saying it doesn't feel it. So please, you know what I'm saying, right?
I do. So if I can just interject there.
Go
Oh
ahead.
no, finish up. No, finish and then I'll come back.
And maybe that's the first thing I wanted to say, which is that those things seem, if I imagine my brother saying no, religion and spirituality, and that's how I perceive him that way. His study groups and his all is lining up, and actually the approach is the same way. Because and it was interesting, Eduardo, you talked about people who like do religion in a particular way, and you're like, wait, that's kind of like lame and critical of them, and I get it. But I also, as a Marxist, I'm not going to be able to evaluate a religion based, in many ways, on the actions of most of its followers. Because if you did that with Marxism, Marxism is trash, right? If you evaluated Marxism based on the actual actions of 999 of the Marxists and not say one, then you just throw Marxism into the trash. You just dump it because it's trash. It turns you into crap. You won't do struggle, and your mind is going to be fucked with tell me what to do. That's really what Marxists have become. Please, somebody tell me what to do, and please, somebody in power tell me what to do. So I'm very comfortable now, or I'm really accepting. None of these things can be evaluated on the basis of what I see people doing who I don't know. I'm going to be using people who are in my life. And right now, it's probably my brother, as really evaluating what is this thing about? Because I see him pursuing his Christianity with the same seriousness and the same integratedness, self and world that I'm Marxism, and I see him throwing the same questions out. Like the questions there are questions I'm throwing out about Marxism that I'm like, okay, that's what I got to do. I actually feel being an honest Marxism makes me do that. And it seems to be he's having a similar approach in Christianity. So that's the first thing I'll say is I'm making a guess, but that's how it appears to me with him. And so that's why I don't think I relate to that notion of those being separated.
So what I would say is I would define you as a very spiritual person, Lipson. So even though you don't believe in a specific dogma, you don't believe in an institution that is religion, the fact that you can question, the fact that so I would define the current spiritual people that are considered some spiritual as the Roman philosophers. People that would think, people that would question, people that would again see what is our place. To Eduardo's point, how can I make this world better? What reaction is my action going to have? Is this going to be a positive move? You do that. Whether you're thinking about Marxism, whether you're thinking about religion, you're asking yourself these questions. You are being critical of one, even Marxism itself, right? Does this work? Is this the right thing around the whole COVID narrative? Does this make sense? You're questioning, how do I feel about it? Am I comfortable with that? What are the consequences of me speaking up against it? What implication is this going to be for my job? These are questions that spiritual people tend to ask. They don't just go with the flow. They question things. Now, this is again, I was raised Roman Catholic. This is going to sound so hypocritical against my whole religious background. However, I feel that religion was set up as a spirituality for dummies. You don't know where to start? Let me put you on a path, on a guide to how to get there. Because religion tries to do that. Religion tries to tell you what to do to be a good person, what role you play in this planet, how you should react or how you should engage with your peers, with your community, with God, right? With the all-powerful being. However, the problem is that most people, in my opinion, just take the word for it and just follow blindly. And they don't practice in the spirituality that is supposed to be religion, which is really think about it. Jesus was the biggest revolutionary of our time across all books. And do you really think, I mean, you could argue that, well, he's the son of God, right? He knew. Okay. So, but if you take it as a man, because he also was a man, and even around his disciples, they had to question the status quo. They had to question what they had been taught, what they had been indoctrinated into. And that's what made it so revolutionary. So it is a way to get you into spirituality. My problem with saying that religion is spiritual, it can be spiritual in essence. However, most religious people are not spiritual people. Most religious people follow what the Bible or the book tells them, what their priest or pastor, they don't question it because they're told, don't question it. Because the institution that is religion tells you, don't question, follow blindly. Just have faith. Have faith that this is the way to go. And to me, that's a problem because that's how you've gotten a lot of these very extremist religious folks do horrible things. Like people have gone to war for religion. People have died needlessly. The church, just the history of the Catholic Church and all the bloodshed. And it wasn't in the name of God, although they said that it was in the name of God. So that's where I see problem in you not being willing to question that, you following blindly. I don't think your brother is doing that. Again, there's a difference, right? But that's why I think people get it so mixed. Like people see them, oh, if you're religious, you're spiritual. If you're spiritual, you're religious. And not necessarily. Would you consider someone, well, I guess you could, although I don't know that Native Americans consider themselves religious. I don't think that that's how they would identify themselves, but they're very spiritual beings. But I don't know.
I mean, go ahead, Eduardo, go ahead. I guess I would say that first of all, I'm not willing to say that people are just blind followers, or of course I mean, that's been our complaint. Like, oh my gosh, here go people like going for this COVID thing, or people going for the censorship thing. But well, I guess what I mean to say is, I don't. It's not. I do believe it's more complicated than what's up with people. Like, why are people just following? I feel like people are in fear. People have power. There are institutions which have power over them, and they are hopeful that those that are there to take care of them, and have been told that they are there to take care of them, and they're kind of hoping that's the case. And it and it takes a lot to break people from that. And people can break from one thing and they get rejoined by an institution again. That's across the board. And so I will say, though, that in evaluating this question of spirituality and religion, and what I don't want to think about it through the lens, or rather, it's not as meaningful to me to think about it through the lens of people who are like, well, look at that dummy over there, if you will. It's more meaningful for me to think about, what's this really about? Where? Because so again, I come from a Marxist background of atheism, and that religion and maybe even spirituality, maybe, I don't know, might wither away. Although I don't think we ever talked about spirituality. We just talked about religion ultimately. But I don't separate spirit and religion. I don't. I think that they have a separate sphere, but they come together in a place, at least for me. So what comes up for me is a question of what is my. So that's one thing, which is I want to evaluate these things not on the basis of some schmo, but on the basis of people who are practicing these things, and what would these look like if we were truly free? What would these things be if people were left free of all our fear of institutions and were imposed on them? What would we do? What would we be like these indigenous folks? Because it apparently believing in something other than what you can touch, taste, and smell and hear has a feature across humanity, and atheists and Marxists are materialists and basically say, look, I'm sorry, you can't go outside of those bounds of what you taste, what you can test with your five senses. And I definitely have a question about that. I definitely have a question about science that's only bound by that. And Marxism is one of those sciences actually bound by materialism of that sort. And I guess I'll say another question that comes up for me in this is, I do believe my relationship to faith has changed. So I'm still an atheist, but my relationship to faith has changed. I used to think of people who believed in a religion and who might call themselves spiritual as practicing a faith, things they just believed in they couldn't see, and I didn't have it. But I have seen now, when all these things have been brought from my eyes around Marxism, around the institution, around the socialist organizations I was in, and science, I saw that I also have faith, and that faith was tested and broken. And do I not have faith now? I think I still do, but I think it's become more centered around things like what's in me, my human connection to people like you, Gema, and you, Eduardo. Beyond that, I don't know. Like, the only thing I think I ultimately have faith in now are those feelings of connection, of love, trust, things like that. Everything else is up for grabs. So I maybe I open up another question, but that's an area that has changed for me, that word faith.
Edu.
Well, what are you going to say in response to Andy?
I think that without sounding mean, I think that right now, because you're seeing them one and the same, it's going to be very difficult to separate them unless you practice. Like, if I had you and I asked you to consciously meditate, and then you ask me, well, what am I meditating? What exactly am I trying to get to? And then you go through this. So, okay, for example, because it comes to mind, Jared Leto, who goes on these crazy retreats. He has his own little cult thing going on, But people go to these things wanting to reach a higher level of being, and it's not tied to religion. It's tied to understanding your place, understanding, being more connected to yourself, being more connected, if you want, to your soul. But it's not tied to religion. That would be another way that I would explain. And if you don't experience something like that, it's going to be difficult. I've had experiences of that nature, not because I sought them, but because of the chaos and where I was mentally and emotionally. It forced me to go into a place like that. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here with you guys right now. So I can distinguish that because I had a similar experience. And maybe that's where, for you, because you haven't found yourself, or you don't maybe interact with a lot of folks that have that way of life, it doesn't connect. I don't know, I don't blame you for it. I think it makes total sense. I still think that you're very spiritual, but I don't know. On my definition, I guess. I'm not the expert. I didn't write the book on this. Eduardo, you're our specialist in this area.
What I don't like is it's supposed to be of atheists who look down on the religious people, and now the religious people are looking down on my atheism.
That's right. That's
Man,
right.
I don't like it.
I'm not advocating for you when I get to St. Peter.
I will say, like, for me, I think that people who are religious can be spiritual, but I always have, just like we are suspicions, or we have our reserves around what is being shared through mainstream media, as we've discussed many times regarding the wars with the war in Ukraine, or what's happening in the world in general. I think I always have my suspicions always around any religious institution trying to bring about peace, or trying to share spirituality, or trying to give people a way of, like even Pope Francis, as much as he's has charisma, and as much as he is the new light, or the new way of being, of how we should act in the world, and I have my suspicions around him, and my suspicions around the Catholic Church, and my suspicions around the religious Jehovah's Witnesses, but I don't have my suspicions around people's honest faith. And if your brother has honest faith, I trust him. If people in my realm, in my community, share with me their religious beliefs, the people I know share with me their religious beliefs, I trust them. I trust their faith. I trust their sincerity. And I don't doubt people's sincerity. I doubt the source, or sometimes their choices in deciding to give all of their being to a religious institution, if they are asking for it, or to ask them to stop talking to certain people because we're not practicing the same religion. I don't have any I have a lot of qualms around people who are trying to govern in the name of God, in the name of Allah, or in the name of Jehovah, or in the name of Jesus, or in the name of whatever, or the Prophet, or Muhammad. And I have my suspicions around people who are trying to share the Krishna values, or trying to share Shiva. I just don't trust anybody giving us the way, or this is the way. Even in my Buddhist tradition, like, practice, I don't trust people trying to give me, or certain people trying to be this, like, what do you call it, like religious leaders, like even just spiritual leaders. I don't trust spiritual leaders. I get weary of people who I've been there, done that already, but I trust people's faith. So I trust your faith. I trust people's religious desire to be in line with something greater than themselves. And I do trust that. So for me, that I don't want to dismiss any of that. For people who are listening, that I do think religious people can be spiritual. But religion, like I said, and spirituality don't have to be one and the same, and are not, to me, in my point of view. And so I think I just want to clear that. And I will emphasize once again, the questions I wish to entertain are more about today than about our future. And that's what I was raised with. You know, it was always in my upbringing, it was about what are we doing so that we can live in paradise. It was always about that future, and it was never about here and now. And no one cared in my community about the here and now, what's going on in the world, because it was about, oh, this world's going to end anyhow. And to me, it's like, oh my goodness, this is the world we've got. This is the planet we have. This is the people we've got. This is society we have to take care of. These are, you know, and then I get very upset and dismayed with so many religious people in the world, or so many people who have religious or beliefs in God, wherever their God happens to be, in whatever continent it happens to be, whether they believe in Buddha, or they believe in Allah, or they believe in Muhammad, or they believe in Shiva or Krishna or the Juju under the bridge, whatever it is. It's like, whatever their belief is, I don't see them having the compassion or the empathy to do more in the world, and that sometimes upsets me. And when I say that, I think maybe I'm judging too hard, but I have more respect, I think, and this is where, you know, even though I'm not, I have always suspicions around people who are trying to do well in the world with the Bible and teaching people how to read. But if what you shared with me, Andy, about your brother going out to, what was it, a prison or jail?
Yeah.
To me, that's something that matters to me. So if religion does that, that's that, or people who are religious, I'd rather say, do that sort of service to the world, that's fine by me. That's something that's meaningful to me, you know. Or if there are Buddhist monasteries out there with orphanages and helping people and bringing kids, you know, out from the streets and into a safety space, then that's important to me. Or if, you know, there are what do you call it, sort of like food banks that are run by religious people, you know, that they're doing service out there, that to me is powerful. I don't know if just praying and wishing helps. To me, I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but to me that doesn't do anything for me, and I don't know if send my prayers does anything. I don't see it, and I don't know how it works. So forgive me if anyone hears that from in the audience, but to me that doesn't, I don't see that as an action. If it means something inside for you and it motivates you to do something afterwards, sure. Then yeah, right? Like I every night I meditate and then I say something along the lines of, you know, may every being be happy. And I say that because I hope people relieve themselves out of their suffering. But I'm not just sitting around and just hoping that happens. I'm doing something about it. You know, I here in Colombia, or whether I'm in Mexico, or with my family or my community, or in my activism, or in my community, wherever it is, you know, I hope that it's beyond just words. So that's how I think about these things. I used to say I was atheist, but I have stopped saying that because I think it's more embracing when I hear people's background and their spiritual paths to accept other people's way of their choice, the choice of their path. It's just the hypocrisy that gets to me, you know. It's a hipocresía that really gets to me when people say one thing and do another, and that is always gotten really that really it ¿cómo se dice? It me dispara, it
triggers you.
triggers, yeah, gracias, that triggers me. It triggers me because it has that feel from the past, from my past, where people were imposing their religious ways or their morality onto me. So I'll stop there if you both have any comments about what I have said.
That's why I turned my back on in the institution that is the church, not against the religion, but against the institution, because I saw the same kind of things that you were saying, that you're talking about, where, you know, you would preach, they would give you the sermon, they would expected you to do something, but they lived their lives completely separate. They had this facade of, I am the all-knowing, you listen to me, and I know what's best because I am the word of God. But Are you really? Like, not that they're the word of God, but that they know, that they communicate with God, right? Um, it's interesting because when you talk about war and our actions and what we're doing, have you guys ever heard of a guy named Alan Watts?
Well,
No. Of course you would, Edu. So, one of the things that stuck out to me that he had said was how, depending on the lens, the magnification of the lens that you're looking at something depends on what you understand from it. So, if you look at a picture, right, from this distance, then you see an image. But if you get a magnifying glass and you just put it on, let's say, an eye, then you'd see something completely different. And it just got to think where our view, the lens that we're seeing it, even in our bodies, think of all the bacteria and the blood and your systems and your organs and how they're working, and how it really is like a mini universe inside of our body. Then if you look even bigger out to the bigger cosmos, and it's the same thing of where you're magnifying it, and that kind of gives you a bigger perspective on life and on what's happening and the role that you play in it. And I feel that most people get stuck in the me, in my organism, and don't see outside of that. They don't see the lens. Everything is, why is this happen to me? Oh, I got fired. It's not, these were my actions that led to me losing my job. Um, I I got beat up, or whatever you want to say. It's just, for some reason, people tend to see the world as reactive, as these things are happening to me. They're not seeing it as, what can I do? So, to Eduardo's point, right now, a lot of people are losing their homes. A lot of people are living on credit card debt. The cost of living is ridiculously high. And people are saying, blaming the world for this happening to them, instead of saying, well, what could I do? What can I do around my community? What action can we take? And it's because we're so disconnected from each other. We see other people as just part of the world that's reacting on us, and not us together, us kind of feeding off of each other. And I don't think that that's on accident. I do think that religious institutions have made that by, they're wrong. The Muslims are our enemy. The Jews are our enemy. Like, the institution that is the church, or that it is religion, has separated us. Then when you wanted to have, well, separation of state and religion, then the state did that to us. The state separated us. Everything, in my opinion, that has been institutionalized has been set up for the separation of us as an individual and the world around us, to where we're not connected, to where the spirituality that, again, Allison goes back to the natives, and that I tend to see as my family and as you guys, is, no, we are in this together. We live in a world together. We respond to it together. We act on it together. And that leads us back to the spirituality of it, is understanding you're not a complete separate entity. The same way that a fungus reacts, or that allows the trees to communicate with each other, so do we. We're part of a system that we're connected in our energy. When we die, I don't think that we just die. I like to think that, I jokingly say I will be in St. Peter's Gate and I will account for all of my sins or all of my actions. But even if that's not the case, I still believe that I will be the energy that will feed back into this world, and hopefully something great will come out of it. A nurturing tree that someday a kid will play out of. I don't know. Um, but that's, to what Eduardo says, is I don't think you should focus on so much what the religious people say versus what they do. They're on another boat. I think they've drank the Kool-Aid, most of those people. Most of the people that understand that they form part of a community, and they form part of a family, and form part of the world, are either not believers, or something like me, where I believe in God. I do. I speak to God. I don't want people to think that I don't. I absolutely do. Something great happens to me. Oh my God. I probably thank God like 10 times a day for an entire month, every single day, just thanking them that something great happened to me. Something bad happens to me, I don't tend to really talk to God. That's where I use my spirituality to kind of go back in and say, why did this happen? What could I have done differently? What can I do now to take control of it? And what can I do now to make it better? So But yeah, I wouldn't get mad at the religious folks. I tend to stay away from them. I just don't engage in conversation. Not people like Joe. There's a difference, because I think Joe is not, while I know you started the conversation with Joe, I actually don't think that Joe is a representation of this, because Joe came from the outside, because Joe adopted it. Joe wasn't like
Joe
brought.
is Andy's brother.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
Unlike maybe Eduardo and I, that we were raised and grew up on it. And this is like, no, this is the thing. There's no other answer. There is no other question. You do not, this is the way. And if you don't follow this way, then you're a bad person. You're going to go, in my case, to hell, right? Your brother wasn't that case. Your brother did critical thinking, and through his life experiences, he came to it, which I think allows for him to have more of a spiritual, more of an analytical aspect to it. Yeah. Which is probably why you identify more.
Maybe. I mean, this one. So, well, first off, where I definitely agree is, and you brought up a new thing, these institutions, right? Because you brought up religion and spirituality, and then the institutions. I think we are all in agreement. The institutions, there's nothing there. There's nothing worth, like, those are not just corrupt. They are mechanisms of control, and they're gonna have to go. And I guess some people would say, well, those institutions produced that religion, and so that is also got to go. Maybe somebody might say that, but I am speaking of an ideology separate from the institution. And can you take something from that ideology and still extract something that's going to be liberating for us? And again, this is unfortunate. I'm going to be using my brother so much in this conversation. One of the features that has come up for it used to be in our conversations that he would listen to me talk about the working class, and on the and Eduardo knows that I've been open borders for quite some time as a result of Marxism, and that has led me to meet people and think about these things and be more critical of the idea of who my enemy is, and if I have to be frightened of somebody, and one of those areas is bound things like the border, like people coming across borders, and so he always would say, you're pie in the sky, you just think people are going to unite. And he would be kind of skeptical of that, very cynical of that possibility, which you could make a lot of money being cynical of people about the idea of people coming together, right? Because we've had a tough time doing that. And I also think you said that those institutions, and you talk about religion, I mean, in the church, but it's true of all the institutions from state to church, are really institutions of division. They are there to create division and exacerbate it among the people that they're trying to control us. Well, now, since he has gone on this journey, he's now, if you will, to my left. He is now one where he's often saying, Andy, I hear you saying that, but that sounds kind of cynical, like in terms of me getting frustrated with people and da-da-da-da-da. He's like, I think people are not as simple as that. I think there's something there. Whether I'm talking about Democrats who I think are chumps, Republicans who I think are chumps, or whoever, some, people, we're all getting played so many different ways, but he's often talking about the areas where people are starting to either wake up or cracks are appearing, speaking from the vantage point of, no, my belief in my faith and his belief in Christianity, just feel, for him, I can sense he just thinks people are going to come together as a result of that. Now he thinks he would call of it through Christ, but if you happen to get to Christ through Buddha, cool. I think that's how he looks at it. That he just puts it that label to Christ, and I would have said, no, you can't do it through religion. You need to do it through actually a political understanding of we are workers, we're the working class. This is what binds us, and things like that. Which I still think has done some good, and has merit to it. But I also think in watching his journey, I wonder if the parts of spirituality or religion, that are meaningful to me, are the parts that are about overcoming division, and even to the point of saying those fools who practice it that way. Those are words of division in many ways. I'm not saying there's not some truth in it, but they tend to lead us towards a static way of looking at things, and that's why I'm kind of balking at that kind of language in this discussion. I've complained as much as anyone bitterly about liberals, bitterly about Democrats, but at the end of the day, I don't know how helpful that is for the understanding that ultimately I'm going to need all those folks and want to give them every chance to come on board for what we will have to do together to make this world different. And that's what comes to mind as I listen to you, Emma. So I'll just leave it at that.
No, but we're on the same page. Again, that's why I'm trying, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but there's the institution that is the church that I don't practice, I don't follow, I don't do. There is the religion, which is that part that Joe is in, and I agree. If you actually read the Bible, if you read the Quran is so beautiful. I've only read a couple of experts and they've been translated, but it's so beautiful. And the books really preach love. Take care of your neighbor, treat what people with respect and with love. That's not what the institutions tell us, right? Well,
yeah.
But that part to me, no, I would agree with Joe, which is why, again, I am religious. I do have faith. I do believe. But then there's also the spiritual aspect of it, which is you also have to question, right? Because if I'm a Catholic, then why am I even bothering reading the Quran? Why do I bother understanding about Judaism, or Buddhism? Why? Because that's my spiritual aspect. That's my questioning, seeing what else is out there, seeing what else can unite. And I do believe that you do need to be connected with people, and regardless of their belief system, at the end of the day, we're all people and we all want a good life. We all want to feel loved. We all want to be happiness. And I think, I don't know about all religions. I haven't studied all religions. I wouldn't pretend to know, but I would assume that that is one big focus for everyone, is ultimately being happy and feeling loved. So I'm going Eduardo, changing the world here, one community garden at a time.
Actually, I am participating here at a community garden here in Bogota.
What did I say?
The little things out here. I think that was a good place for us to find a way to wrap this up. And then I think that what matters is what how connected we are. I mean, you put it, I don't want to repeat what you're saying, Hannah, but you said it.
I'll add one thing, which is there's some people I'm thinking about during this conversation. James Deschanel, who is a practicing Catholic.
Yeah.
And can't stand the current Pope. Is more like the old school popes. I think of Jake Kleisik, right, who I know is Christian. And people are going to wonder, like, well, why wasn't Joe on this episode? I don't think he would agree to do it, but I do.
Not when you heard Eduardo and I know.
Yeah, but I do think that I kind of think if these folks hear this episode and want to revisit some of these questions, I would want to do that with them.
Sure.
Particularly James. Yeah. I just want to put that out. I don't know if there's other people you're thinking of, Eduardo, that we've had on the episode, but those are the two that come to mind, including my brother, who I would say I'm probably going to check with him and be like, I'll come back and correct the record of whether I represented what he believes right. So we'll see.
But it's our interpretations of it all too, right?
Well, I mean, I think this is a good place for us to wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just want to take this little circle, go around, and I'm glad we talked about it, because it's not like we figured shit out, but I'm glad we.
You're never like, that's the whole thing about this. Like, you're never going to figure this out.
Yep.
Right. We're never going to have the answer to, can we scientifically prove that there is God?
Mm-hmm. Good luck.
This topic, I think, will be an ongoing episode topic that we'll have. I think that with different invitees, we'll see how it goes. That's what I think, and I hope that will be.
Yep.
Can we wait till my Catholic wedding? Because I'm afraid now that they're gonna reach to the Vatican and withdraw my faith.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode. What's Left is a weekly political podcast / channel challenging the mainstream left. We post information about our topics and our guests in the episode notes, where we found this episode, or on our blog at what'sleftpodcast.com. You can find that episode or any of our episodes to this podcast / channel there, and connect with us. I remind folks, if you like anything you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, turn on your notification to any of our platforms on the Spotify, iTunes Podcast, Google Play, Bitchute, Odysee, YouTube, Rumble, or Telegram. And you can find our blog and any of those links in the episode notes wherever you found this episode. If you would like to give us feedback about something you've heard or suggest something for us to cover, contact us through our blog. I'm Eduardo Barca with co-host Gema Sotomayor and Andy Lipson. And my personal social media handle is at Don Eduardo Barca on Instagram. Don Eduardo Barca on Instagram. Sorry, it's been a while since I've spoken in English. It's been so long. And I feel like I have marbles in my mouth. Right. All right, thank you for listening. Thank you, everyone. Ciao.
Ciao.
Wrap up here, and I look forward to another discussion on spirituality. I hope I did not what I wanted to end with, actually, what was on my mind. I hope I didn't offend anybody on the audience when I said that prayers and good wishes. I hope that doesn't, I don't know, we'll cut this out, but I was feeling a little bit hesitant towards the end about me having said that. I don't think it doesn't mean anything for anybody. I just see it as, okay, this and action, no? Like, yeah. I hope that made sense.
You'll get a chance to edit this, and you'll decide whether you didn't like it, I thought it was fine, but you'll decide. Yeah.
It's in the context that you were saying it. You never said people that pray are stupid. You were just saying, it was in the context that you're asking for action.
I hope.
Yeah. It was just implied that they were stupid, so don't worry about it.
No.
Isn't every comment he makes implied though that? Like
that is true. That is true. Most of everything Eduardo says implies that everybody other than Eduardo is pretty stupid.
Doesn't know what the heck's going on.